Haven City, an ugly city. Episode 11. What comes to the light? We cut to a close-up of the collective's high-tech plague doctor goggles. The strobing neon lights of the city reflect off of her pink lenses peering out of the window of Henri's massive metal helicopter. The collective is completely zoned out over views of the cityscape, hoping for a breakthrough in her desire to know what or who she was. Val! Kali? Henri calls out but gets no response in return. Finally, Jace Beleren telepathically calls for her in her own mind, which seems to do the trick. Val turns toward her peers Henri and Jace, sitting down with an attack plan drafted by Jace laid out in front of them. What's going on in that head of yours? Matter of fact, I don't want to know. Jace nods, as if to agree wholeheartedly that it's never recommended to know what's going on in her head. Henri causes the helicopter's window to meld close with the flex of his finger. Can you and your arm join us, please? Of the helicopter's mass, he forms an extra comfortable platform for her to sit on. Well, as comfortable as a block of ferrous metal can be. Val looks down at her arm, which contorts and writhes to the sound of it being mentioned, and she tries to focus again. Lately, something within feels strange. Val sits with them and they all begin to plan for Atlas's enforcers' next move. We see a high-strung woman frantically helping her elderly mother into their vehicle. Her son assists from the inside while screaming for his mother to hurry up and get in. An android taxi driver possessed by an abyssal creature spasmodically power walks their way. Blood on its hands, growling like a hostile lunatic, the machine begins to pick up its pace while the woman fumbles her keys and ultimately drops them. Hardened by the streets of the Shade District, she draws her pistol and begins to fire rapidly, missing all but one shot. Though ineffective at point-blank range, the android engages when suddenly a WWC vehicle slams into the android at high speed, sending its junky mass rolling down the street. A muscular, silver-eyed wardenary with jet black hair gets out and checks the bumper of his car. The ex-captain of the WWC, Jermaine Foster, looks back at the android spazzing out on the ground. The young man praises Jermaine and the WWC while trotting toward him, but Jermaine holds up his hand and shouts for him to keep his distance as he begins to cough up a vile orange fluid, a nasty reaction to the Nox virus unleashed upon the world. I can't shake the feeling that you were supposed to be a victim to show how dangerous the city is right now, so why don't you take your mother and Gam Gam indoors where it's safer, alright, kid? He wipes the orange fluid from his beard. The boy listens, and they flee the scene. Haven wasn't safe. Not for them, not for anyone. Jermaine hops in his whip as we see his neon-lit license plates that read Hex as he speeds off, hitting the android once more. We then pan up from street level and can see a beautiful view of the ugly city. Everyone was sick, some more than others. Anarchy's androids that were previously dormant and powered down were now filled with life from the abyss. From hostile monsters to docile spirits of the dead who longed for a new lease on life. By Ivan's will, the heart of this wretched tank known as the Ichromancer continues to pump life into the natural plane on a massive scale. The large celestial continent that is Sapathra, the realm of the beast gods, descends slowly into the tank and above the artificial planet's atmosphere. Home to the patron animal warriors of Nebi lore created by the Mama Yaga, sustained by the beast gods themselves, their energies contribute to the flourishing strength and beauty of its golden cities, grass fields, forests, waterfalls, and everything else necessary for the animals of the universe to live out their lives. Yaga Makai was bringing a home to those who want to be liberated from the Necrofiend's spiritual matrix. We cut to Kadric, standing in the center of the Nebi capital, now littered with slain traitors of Nibu who assisted Atlas. Councilmen of the Void Mother come dragging Amanda V and toss her to Kadric's feet. She looks up at him with little respect, ignorant of his lineage and spiritual meaning to the Nebi mythos. Kadric twirls his finger, summoning a vortex of purplish fog that lifts and dangles her into the air, spinning. Then with the wave of his hand, her body begins to evaporate within the gale of purple wind. Kadric was a master of the void magics. It was just another muscle to him. He turns and looks up, making direct eye contact with Makai. This catches him by surprise, being entirely off-planet. Makai asks Mama Yaga about this stranger, but learns she too does not know. This was unsettling, but to Makai, it was just another Nebi brother needing to be freed. Makai takes a step forward just as several slain Nebi spirits are reborn through Yaga's light, appearing beside him. Forged by the volcanic flames of truth, and stepping out of a pillar of flame, a man with an ignited mohawk of fire and lightweight clothing appears. Sanic stands beside Yaga Makai, his black baggy pants flapping in the wind as a twister cascades horizontally across the sky. Another young man shirtless with a long dreaded ponytail comes riding the wind in a stylish freefall and lands on the other side of Yaga Makai. Renu stands with Makai and his older brother as it begins to rain upon the three, until descending from the rain clouds we see yet another barefoot warrior appear. Long wet black hair, piercing blue eyes, donning a navy blue battlesuit. Yamesa stands with her brethren as the ground begins to shake. A chunk of the continent underneath them breaks off from the mainland and begins to carry them all toward the artificial planet below. From the massive rock, another sibling of the children of prophecy stands among Makai and the others. Sokon stands concentrating to ensure safe travels as they hurl toward corrupted Nibu. Jeremiah Oliver sits as a prisoner deep within the council chambers. The tables were turned. He sits fidgeting with his hands, stressed without his phone and a line of sight to his business empire, which was currently up in flames. He ponders about his new enemy, the Nagamoto. Something didn't seem right. He even begins to wonder if he's been betrayed, for he hasn't seen Dennis Bateman since Akari Maxima Nagamoto escaped. And who would have thought Nibu had so many heroes? And now this? Jeremiah stands up and slams his fist against the stone wall with frustration, causing him to flinch in pain. We then hear laughing coming from the other side of the prison bars. Selena slithers over toward him, humored by Jeremiah's pain. The tables. Oh, the tables. Jeremiah, puzzled by Selena's new form, a humanoid shaping of void magic with no characteristics by default. Jo comments on her missing beauty, which triggers Selena. Within moments, Selena enchants her body with an illusion, making her appear identical to her old body. And though to everyone else it looked the same, to Selena, it didn't feel the same. Selena was infuriated to have Ivan's gift taken from her. However, she seemed to have a plan. Selena void steps through the bars and grabs Jeremiah by the collar and tells him it's time. Ivan calls. Jeremiah pushes her hand away and straightens his tailor-made coat. Good. Take me to Haven and get me out of here. Selena and Jo void step out of the cell. The dizzy wizard waltzes into an Atlas property management office. Its grand and exquisite interior was jaw-dropping, but was even more shocking to Dizzy was that its tables had empty candy jars. Very disappointing, he thinks. The wizard is met with many stares, for he was definitely the most colorful individual in the building. He begins to make his way around the building looking for where he can purchase Atlas properties, but notices a lot of the Dorinthian men and women in suits are watching him closely. some even following him. Dizzy thinks to himself if maybe they caught on to him already. No, that would be impossible, he thinks. Deep in paranoid thought, Dizzy runs smack dab into a woman slightly larger than him. She wore a suit and had a black katana on her belt, a signature weapon for the Nagamoto clan. Dizzy rubs his aching, brittle body, an unfortunate side effect of the Nox virus. Are you looking for something, sir? She asks. Dizzy Wizard tells her he's looking to purchase the Dizzy Whiz Fizz factory. Atlas owns that, right? The clansman's eyebrow raises from behind her shades. We cut to Dizzy, sitting down in front of a supposed Atlas lawyer who had a scar running across their nose and a tattoo of a bleeding snake on their neck. Dizzy can see a puddle of blood on the floor behind the desks as well as a tied-up hostage gagged and stuffed under a quarter of the way. Dizzy doesn't think too much of it. Perhaps they duel for Employee of the Month, he thinks. The lawyer finishes reading Dizzy's paperwork. They were soggy, smelled sweet, and were stained with chocolate. The lawyer crumples up the papers and tells Dizzy he can buy the factory flat out, and asks how much he's got to spend. The Dizzy Wizard lays $700 Dizzy dollars and 2 cinnamon fizz whizzes on the desk. The lawyer picks up and examines the strange-looking currency, the Dizzy Wizard's charming yet sickly grimace on the center of the billfold. The lawyer holds up the bill in front of his eye and begins rubbing it vigorously until it crumbles into a powdered sugar. Oh, wow! You must be one of those G-types. Can you turn counterfeit money into sugar? Oh wait, did I say counterfeit? I'm tripping. I meant Dizzy dollars. The lawyer ponders whether he should call security, but something about the Dizzy Wizard really rubbed him the right way. Besides, the Nagamotos made it an underground law to ban all operation of Atlas businesses, with more districts to follow suit, more kingpins to bribe, many more. The lawyer puts Dizzy's name on the deed and pockets the Fizzy Whiz candy. The lights cut on inside a massive Dizzy Whiz Fizz factory. Dizzy takes a deep breath and closes his eyes. He was back home. He remembers being made right there on that conveyor belt. Who would have thought that one day a candy bar could one day own a candy factory? Enough basking in sweet, sweet nostalgic glory, he says aloud, I have a city to treat. The Dizzy Wizard powers up the candy machines and begins mass-producing every genius candy idea he's ever had, from sugar spoofs, fizzy piglets, gummy brittles, Dizzy Wizzy tip-toffs, to his reimaginings of vintage Dizzy brands before Atlas's purchase, such as short, long wizard fingers and the controversially shaped candy-creamed Uncle Fizzies. Inspection wasn't required for these delectable marvels, and so they were immediately shipped out as care packages to every poor soul in Haven, filling its inhabitants with joy during an era of chaos. Dizzy even sends a special package to the underground crime bosses to notify them that Atlas no longer owns the factory. That way, his factory isn't vandalized by some Nagamotos at night. The Dizzy Wizard kicks back with his feet up in a chair made of whipped fluffy sex cake and thinks to himself, is there anyone doing anything nearly as important as what I'm doing? He spins around in his ooey gooey chair and opens up his medicine container and begins plucking out candy pills for his sugar pressure. Too much blood in his sugar. He needed to stay healthy if he was going to watch his business grow, perhaps even maybe have some kids one day. Janiva cradles Deftude's most favored creation in what is now a vessel to the disembodied endless deity. The child of the nuclear G-type and offspring of the alien Rezanok, a hybrid with unprecedented communion between hand-selected strands of DNA. Janiva whispers to the infant emperor, soon you will grow into your power, and all will know. Nuad stares back in silence. Pope Turner trails Janiva and Deftude, chaperoning their 2 Vitae hostages, Amelia and Rose. We can tell he is growing antsy and growing tired of babysitting, but they finally are arriving to their destination. Deftude shares his vision with the Queen of Darkness as they enter one of his old blood vein facilities hidden deep within the Evolution District. Lightning stab! A streak of razor-sharp lightning zips and crackles across the room. A Dorinthian fighter in a Mastercraft blood-veined battlesuit falls and lands elegantly on both feet, firm holding a long blade, still sizzling with electric radiance. His technique was already superior to his own father's at a fraction of his age, but it wasn't yet perfected. Grimsbane takes a deep breath and runs his hands through his short, messy hair. 24 hours straight of training, with another hour in tow. Grimsbane walks over and kneels over a scroll with white light etched into it. He performs a brief incantation, and suddenly his body fatigue begins to fade, allowing him to push for maximum results. It's all there was to do when you're placed on guard duty for several years. He prepares for another round of training, or so he thought. The moment Grimsbane sees the head director of life sciences approaching, he straightens up and swiftly returns to his station just outside the only door. Deftooed greets Grimsbane, who bows before his young lord. Deftooed asks if there have been any disturbances, to which Grimsbane replies yes, and pulls out a bright and colorful package and hands it to Deftooed. Deftooed opens up the box and finds a Dizzy Whiz Fizz Extra Creamy Crunch Time Deluxe wrapped inside an edible candy foil. Deftooed, perplexed, reads the note that simply says, "From the Dizzy Whiz Fizz factory, P.S. no longer owned by Atlas." Deftooed hands the package back and tells him to ensure no one ever finds this location for packages again. Grimsbane nods and grants them entry into the chambers. Geneva loses her balance and begins to collapse, but is caught by Grimsbane. The effects of the virus were beginning to take their toll. She doesn't know that her dark influence over the Necro Guardians was beginning to grow weaker. Deftooed and Geneva enter, leaving Poke Turner to guard over the two Vitae children. A terrible mistake at this juncture. Poke snatches one of Rose's favorite pins from her pocket and begins to evade her as she angrily reaches for it. Rose overextends herself and flops as Poke teleports and reappears hovering over Amelia, laughing. He was bored and figured that the Vitae girls could be fun, so he begins childishly antagonizing them in a playful way, though being hostages was anything but fun for them. For a brief moment, Geneva's influence fades, causing Poke to experience natural clarity. What was he doing here babysitting these children? Poke would sooner kill the Emperor of the Endless than protect it with its minions. Poke Turner stops running and lets Rose catch up to him. With a twinkle in his eye, Poke asks Rose and Amelia if they want to have some fun. Amelia gets ready to speak, but Rose stops her. "We shouldn't talk to him, you know." Poke looks flustered, then throws the pen across the room. "Haven is a fun city. We're gonna have fun. I'll get you ice cream." John Musketmouth sits kicked back at the dinner table surrounded by his crew as they stand captivated by his exaggerated tall tales from when he was on Monster Island. His fellow pirates laugh and banter, drunk on rum while volleying foul words to and fro. Serenity sits hostage beside John, disgusted by their manners. Suddenly, the dizzy wizard didn't seem so bad. John stands up. "If it weren't for me, Cervantes de Agueja would be plant food, bionutrient mush." The crew cheers, eating up his story. John looks at Serenity, who rolls her eyes in disgust. She was a little salty because he traded her Funoichi crest for black market weaponry. John shouts to have some apple juice brought for the girl and gives her a wink and a thumbs up, making her even more mad. Suddenly, a pirate band returns from their job, and with them carrying various injured pirate allies, but one of them carrying a petrified pirate mate. They sit their statuesque ally up under the sun for everyone to see. John ascends from the crew quarters and is pleased to see that his intuition was correct yet again. The treasured amulet sits nestled between the stone fingers of the petrified man. They claim he was encased by its spell on touch, but John doesn't look worried nor concerned. He calls his healing maidens to his side and directs 2 of them to help the injured pirate that was bitten by the cybernetic Azurian shark. The head maiden, however, had a special task. We see Sapphire, a sexy, seductive Dulaman woman who stood tall, thick and curvy with a sexualized battlesuit. She's been an ally of John ever since he stole her from her original captors during a ship raid. His home has been her home ever since. After all, you weren't a pirate legend unless you had a powerful mystic in your crew, he thought. He made certain glory was always on the path he led his people down. John kindly asks Sapphire to dispel the treasure so that he may acquire it for himself. Sapphire circles around the subject, scrolls and books cuffed in her right arm. John's sea dogs drooling and fixated on her beauty. Sapphire informs him of the severity of the curse bestowed upon him and says that it could take a day to lift in order to preserve the pirate's life. John ponders. Well, we can just do him later. Let's just get the treasure unpetrified for now. Sapphire nods and begins to transmute the earthened amulet. Later that night, we cut to John on the ship deck, tapping his hooped earring, cycling through a hologram display of his ignored phone calls and missed voice messages, all of which were Jeremiah reaching out to him regarding the Fenuichi diplomat girl, Serenity. John hears something and looks to his left where we see Reflector, leaning casually, looking at the reflection of the setting sun on the sea below. He turns to John, who begins to squint from the blinding glare of his platinum tooth within his own reflection. To his right, we see Janova, cloaked and perched on top of a loot container, sizing John up. John turns around when he hears Starrift's deep vocal strings humming John's own infamous tune. It was a compliment. Starrift admires John's large fleet of hovering ships. They were high-end, advanced, but still had that historic aesthetic to it. How could you own such an extraordinary fleet, yet pilot such a silly command ship? Starrift was referring to the ship they were standing on at the very moment, John's infamous craft, the Smoking Duck, a big pink duck, equipped with all the fixings a pirate could dream of, though. John walks over and places his hand on a large black market cannon outlawed across the continents. The Godfinger. There's nothing silly about this pink duck, my friend. John shows off his new toy. It started to malfunction this morning and hasn't worked since, but Starrift didn't need to know that. Starrift is impressed by the artillery, but his smile quickly fades as he moves on to business. Starrift is here for the Nebi diplomat, or as he knows her as the third Vitae girl. John tells him she's safe and sound. Janova grins. Janiva will be pleased. Starrift nods, as will Nuad. As will Nuad. Take us to her if you so please, John. 2 of John's most trusted pirates guard Serenity as she eats her dinner. When they're not looking, she sneaks out of her quarters and traverses the lively and rambunctious ship. She hides behind a barrel as some pirates pass, when just then, she leans on the tail of the large gamma rat, causing it to bite her hand. Serenity falls out of the shadows in front of the pirates, startling them. The pirate's pet rat scurries up his leg and into his satchel. What the? Just before he can say anything, spiked chains shoot out of the darkness, constricting his neck to silence him as he is then snatched into the dark. Serenity uncovers her eyes, sees the coast is clear, and begins running through the ship, gathering the attention of other pirates. She spots a pirate coming her way, so she turns around and goes the other direction, but is engaged by 2 others when suddenly a scythe on chain impales and pulls a guard into the dark. The other pirate parries a floating scimitar, trying to lop his head off, but he is then tackled off of his feet by a wooden crate that falls over him, trapping him as several ninja blades exit the void and impale all angles of the crate like a classic magic trick before being dragged into the dark. Serenity, frightened, runs back toward the ladder as the guard who once had legs lay in the corner holding a decapitated arm in agony. Serenity looks away and escapes up the ladder. Musketmouth and Starrift's party board the prisoner ship where Serenity is being kept. John tells him to wait as he goes to get the girl. When landing from the sky in his path arrives Arod, fully bound in his Gygas armor. Scorching flames can be seen glowing from under. His helmet morphs backward, revealing half of his face except for the scarred side, a symbol representing his suppression of it. Arod feels empowered from the presence of the Vitae girl. He can tell she's still near. John looks confused. "Hey, aren't we all on the same team?" He turns to Starrift. "We are still in good standing with the Necro chums, yeah?" Starrift, also perplexed, sizes up Arod and reads his body language. It was hostile. "Why are you here, Necro Guardian? I told you I would be securing the last Vitae girl." Arod's eyes begin to glow like a furnace. John gets a feeling and begins to run for it into a full dive off of the deck as soon as it erupts into flames. The floor under Arod turns into a mirror as dozens of Janova clones leap up from it, attacking Arod from all angles and hurling him off of his feet into the air. But Arod obliterates them all with the swing of his arm, engulfing them in flame. Starrift strikes Arod, but Arod catches his hand and parries Starrift's second attack. Arod already has detected Starrift's Ray Lugarian strong style just by his first punch. Starrift attempts to subdue the rogue Necro Guardian, but is outmatched by the Gygas armor's superior strength, leading Arod, smacking Starrift around for a moment until clobbering him with the fist of flame, sending him flying into another ship. Arod flies through the sky to follow up on Starrift for the final blow, but is attacked by two Janova clones who leap onto his head, blocking his vision. Arod rips them off and impales one through the heart with a blade that juts out from his suit. Starrift attacks from behind Arod, grabbing the back of his neck with his Fist of Anarchy and begins to absorb the necrotic energy from the suit itself. The suit was plentiful and in turn powered the fist to max capacity to Starrift's surprise. Still, with no clue on how to use it, Starrift gambles and ends up decimating Arod with an explosive necro shock that stuns him. Then by his neck, Starrift hurls Arod into the sky with super cybernetic strength from the fist. Arod is flung upward and onward just as Reflector summons a large ship, pulling it out of the ocean's reflection and sends it crashing into Arod. Janova dives, pushing Reflector out of the way as 7 Atlas jets fly by, firing thunderous rounds that would have ripped him in half, but are ineffective on John's ship. The airstrike continues, but are soon easily dispatched by John's fleet within minutes. Starrift stands marveling at the Fist of Anarchy as it glows purple, its nodes humming and vibrating with black necrotic power. He suddenly spots Serenity running across the deck of another ship. He shouts out to Reflector, who swiftly summons a mirror gateway. Starrift dives through and lands right in front of Serenity. Serenity looks terrified by the large muscle-bound Ray Lugarian. He holds his hand out. "Come, Vitae girl. I will make sure you will not be harmed." Serenity remembers when her father trusted a Ray Lugarian. He was slaughtered. Serenity turns and runs. Starrift lunges after her when suddenly he has 2 Kusaragamas rip into his abdomen, pulling him in another direction as Ivan Picard comes across the opposite direction from out of the abyss with a flying kick, spinning Starrift in circles before hitting the ground. Ivan lands and looks up slowly at Starrift, then back at Serenity with a smile that she remembers so vividly it paralyzes her. Starrift holds on to his open wounds. Who was this mysterious assailant? The entire sea from under them begins to boil and glow orange from the firestorm building from under it. Arod's power maximizes as a fire begins to rain from the sky upon John's fleet. We see Musket Mouth running for his life, barely escaping but precisely evading falling javelins of flames. He lifts up a hatch and slides down into a ship where it's safer. We cut to 2 abyssal ninjas searching John's room for his gamma eggs, stowing away valuables as they looted. Suddenly, the hard wood under them turns into Solian death mud, a type of sand thought to be sentient how it consumes its victims. Once waist deep, both ninjas void step out of the mud, but the second they touch the floor, they are zapped and banished to the Neutrals realm forever. Sapphire Stone comes stepping out from behind the door, finishing her chant as the banishment circle she drew on the floor begins to fade away. Out of nowhere, and catching her off guard, an abyssal ninja strikes from the void, attempting to gut her. But the assailant's knife, oddly enough, misses the exposed sexy bits of her armor and shatters upon it. Just before the abyssal ninja strikes again, a cursed amulet comes beaming from across the room, hitting the ninja in the head, turning him to stone. We see John, who had just tossed it with perfect accuracy, pump his fist and wink at Sapphire. He asks her if the eggs are safe. Sapphire reveals them to have been hidden within the bowl of fruits, disguised as topaz melons. Starrift lunges toward a backflipping Ivan, unable to grasp the evasive ninja appearing and reappearing in and out of the void. Ivan grabs Serenity, when just then, Starrift comes leaping through a mirrored surface, tackling Ivan down the steps. Ivan nimbly flips up onto his feet and sends two animated chain scythes swinging at Starrift as a distraction. Ivan void steps backwards and reappears beside Serenity on the floor above him and scoops her up. All around we see abyssal ninjas raiding and stealing everything that isn't nailed to the floor. Ivan retrieves several black market smoke bombs from his sleeve and tosses them. However, they malfunction and fizzle out. What? Janova springs out at Ivan, who gracefully rolls out of the way, but realizes he is no longer holding Serenity. Janova pilfers Ivan of Serenity along with his ninja tool belt. Janova winks at Ivan and somersaults into a mirror, disappearing and reappearing on the smoking duck that is now circling around to fire at Ivan with a fully charged Godfinger pointing straight into the sky. Starrift looks at Ivan and they meet eyes. Then he escapes into the floor after it changes into a reflective surface. Starrift appears beside Musket Mouth, who we see evading fire raining from the sky pouring from Aerald. John shouts the order to have the Godfinger fired at Aerald when suddenly the cannon begins to malfunction and overcharge, causing the entire ship to quake. Musket Mouth runs up and smacks the drunken pirate in the head for slacking on the job and tries to fire the cannon himself when he hears the cannon screaming at him in various 1000 Island dialects. He was possessed with someone's life force and trying to get everyone on the ship killed. John shouts out a foul batch of words, then snatches the rum out of the pirate's hand for a swig before death by exploding Godfinger. Suddenly, Starrift runs toward the cannon with an entire arm charged with the remainder of R-Type's blue energy. Starrift strikes the cannon with all his might, changing the course of the finger's trajectory and now facing the burning ship Ivan was on. He was dedicated to killing Ivan. Starrift didn't know who or what Ivan was, but it needed to die and it needed to die now. He absorbs all of the Godfinger's charge and reapplies it into an all-out push attack into the cannon, sending a violent beam of lightning into the sky that then returns from the heavens, obliterating the ship Ivan is on. A maelstrom of electric waves engulf the entire sky, frying every Atlas soldier parachuting from it. Luckily for John, every ship in his fleet was in the right place at the right time, avoiding any damage. Starrift watches the flames of the ship as they fly away on the duck. Serenity's wrists tighten his grip. Aerald flies into the clouds of flames and lightning, searching the wreckage for Ivan Bakara and Serenity, but since neither, Aerald finds a sliver of Ivan's cloak blowing in the wind. He catches it, but it withers and evaporates between his fingers. He turns around quickly after feeling something, but finds nothing but a note tucked into his pauldron. Scrawled on it are cryptic instructions of a secret location inside the Golgan district. With the power and influence of both Atlas and Dravko Maz on the decline due to the Nagamoto invasion of Haven's underworks, Yin is able to maneuver into some powerful positions and get his thumb on the pulse of corrupt politicians and foot on the necks of district business owners. Over the course of days, we see many motions get made in favor of the Nagamotos. Several legendary Dorinthian kingpins, the Watanabe Five, are freed from prison. Various pharmaceutical companies strong-armed into bowing down to all Dorinthian crime families. The yokai, the Tora family, the Saru family, the Tanaka family, and of course the Nagamatos. But that was where it would end. The weeds of the underground would finally come to halt when a new face and beacon of hope would appear in Haven in the absence of Tempest. We cut to a young man with slick-backed hair, ocean blue eyes, standing proud in front of the abandoned government estate that hasn't been occupied since anarchy's reign. Troy Powers raises his fist into the air and begins to speak. People of Haven, in the face of adversity, we must stand together and fight it head on. Why? Because if we turn our tails, our sons and daughters will forever be in danger to the filth that lies beneath. Citizens of Haven begin to have their hearts filled with hope, now radiating from Troy's presence. Troy looks the lot of them in the eye and connects with those present, heart and mind. They believed in his words. With your help, I will be able to ensure that the future is brighter and much cleaner for the futures to come. I, Troy Powers, do solemnly swear to give my life for Haven in order to create a better tomorrow. Civilians watch in awe. What he was saying was supposed to get him killed. However, the Technomancer tyrant, Anarchy's androids, were nowhere to be found. Now was the best time for the restoration of hope. Troy walks up the steps of the government estate ruins and turns to the people. We see armed Nagamato goons running into the crowd surrounding him. Haven, trust in me as I trust in you to help me create this dream a reality. The goons jump out of the crowds with guns pointed. With a quick flash, we see a battlesuit manifest over top of Troy's clothes, and with a great big symbol of power now glowing on his chest, Troy shouts, "Let us pierce the clouds of darkest with the light of hope. We will rise together." His voice echoes, sending hope into the hearts of his allies, restoring faith, but shatters the hope of those nearby who wish to harm Troy. The goons suddenly lose all confidence and experience heavy despair. They then lay their rifles on the ground out of respect and begin to flee, but are swiftly apprehended by lawmen, no longer afraid to be heroes and do their job thanks to Troy. We cut to a disgruntled Yin Muramusa watching the news of Troy's self-nominated presidency. He turns and looks at Maxima, who is resting in bed, her temperature high from the Nox virus. She telepathically tells him she is relying on him to keep the chokehold on Haven tight until she can recover and continue to orchestrate. Yin nods, his silky black hair lit by the red interior ambience of their lavish base. A Nagamato clansman enters to inform the siblings that their guest is here. We cut to the lobby of the Nagamato base, where we see an old Dorinthian man dressed down in samurai robes being escorted toward Yin and Akari. The old man begins to walk his own path and sizes up an entire row of stoic clansmen one by one. He pulls one of their katanas from its sheath and analyzes the quality before scoffing. The fearless old samurai then approaches Yin, who bows his head low, showing respect for Jeddah, the legendary Dorinthian craftsman. Jeddah pulls him up and pushes the blade into Yin's clutches and asks him if he would use such a poorly crafted blade. Yin wasn't sure how to answer. He would sooner snap his target's neck in half with his bare hands than wield a katana ever. Respectfully, Jeddah, if my target must die, death will arrive by any means necessary, Yin says. Jeddah signals to his apprentices to bring his crafting equipment into the building. He then tells Yin that he will make sure that his tools of death are on par with his ability to serve it. Yin is grateful for Jeddah's allegiance and was hoping he'd accept his request. Later, we cut to Jeddah standing over Akari, who has been put to sleep. Yin and his clansmen watch from afar, not knowing what to expect from Jeddah's crafting. Jeddah begins to perform slow and fluid movements over top of Akari's head, Then, with his bare hands, he begins to siphon out psychic power from her mind. Defying physics, Jeddah effortlessly begins to forge and temper a blade formed of Akari's own psychic ability. Each smash of his hammer, gusts of wind, slices through the room, and quakes shake everyone to their core until Jeddah is finished and stands there holding the ultraviolet blade seemingly made of pink psychic matter, carved like glass. Jeddah begins to wave it slowly as it hums while it's in motion. He calls over an unsuspecting clansman. Hesitant, the clansman looks at Yin, and Yin nods. The clansman approaches Jeddah when suddenly, with his first step, Jeddah lunges toward him, bringing the blade clear across his abdomen, delivering a non-fatal blow, but enough pain to floor him with blood. It was a clean and lightweight blade. The clansman drops to his feet, holding his wounds in pain. Jeddah hands the radical weapon over to Yin. Yin looks down at it in awe. The clansman suddenly begins to rage out and start beating his hands and feet in the ground out of intense anger, as if no longer in pain at all. Jeddah informs Yin that it is called the Psycho Blade, crafted from the power of your sister's mind. With it, those you inflict wounds upon are overcome with a naturally irreversible psychosis. Yin's eyes widen, then become settled. The clansman sets his sights on Yin and charges him in a drooling rage, spurts of blood gushing out of the psycho clansman with each stride. Yin holds out the psycho blade and with minimal concentration begins to bend the will of the psycho, bringing him to a halt, though still pumped up, but no longer hostile toward him. Yin is pleased. He could now move forward with his plan to sew up Haven's underground for good. Straying away from the plan and endangering the Vitae girls, we see Poke Turner teleporting all over Haven City, showing Amelia and Rose all of his favorite sites and hangouts, most of them being places too dangerous for young children, or anyone for that matter. They didn't mind though. Poke, however old he was, looked like a child and had the spirit of one, so he knew what fun was. Scary shit, but fun nonetheless. With a little poking and prodding, Poke Turner encouraged them to tap into their rebellious sides they never knew they had. He also tells them of secrets he learned by eavesdropping on DefTude blabbing about how special they were. Yada yada yada, G-Type 2, yada yada, vitamin girls. Amelia recalls the term G2 being used by gate scientists who were always flooding her father last year, but her memory was fuzzy. She just knows it meant something important. We see the three of them, Poke, Rose, and Amelia, perched on a viaduct railway, eating ice cream cones he stole for them. Poke explains that at any moment the viaduct will fly through here at Mach 10 speeds. He bets them that he can displace the entire viaduct and have it fly into that building over there. He points at Mesa Mart across the river. The girls were too distracted by the height at which they were elevated over the city to have fun. Amelia gets her bearings and asks, "Well, what if you fail?" Poke chuckles. "Then you jump, or get ducted." Ducted? Rose informs Amelia what exactly a viaduct is. When the average Havener needed to get around the megalopolis at high speed, their primary tool was the viaduct system. Across Haven are thousands of elevated and subterranean magnet-powered trains maneuvering through the city in a complex web, enabling people to get anywhere in the city within a few hours, give or take. Viaduct trains are not only the most effective method of public transportation, but also a fairly prolific weapon. My father designed the rail's cooling system. Poke interrupts. "Are you chicken?" He begins making exaggerated chicken sounds and maneuvers, not paying attention to the train approaching from behind. With only fractions of a second to react, Poke Turner teleports out of the way of the viaduct as it clears off everything on its path. Poke looks around for the potentially dead hostages. He turns back around, and there below on the rooftop of a building we see Mistress Scorn placing Amelia down beside Rose after saving them both in the nick of time. Scorn was watching every move Poke has made with the Vitae girl since losing Serenity. She has come to the realization that Janiva's sickness is dulling the power of the necrofiend influence. Not only that, but she knew there was something off with Poke Turner. Poke begins to giggle, then appears upside down in his little floating ball. His Gygas armor retracts and minimalizes, becoming the normal clothes he typically wears, only all black. Scorn speaks in a kind and patient tone with the young boy. Perhaps I could relieve you of your duty for a while. You must be bored. Poke Turner's expression turns rigid. We zoom in on Scorn's many eyes as the two glare at each other. This reminds Poke of his encounter with Saoirse. These motherly figures made him feel a way. He'd preferred them dead. Poke begins to giggle again. This isn't duty, this is fun. Poke Turner sets his sights on Rose and Amelia and gets ready to take them back when suddenly a great ball of green and red flame blazes across the sky, leaving a trail of noxious fumes. With a head of green fire and totally possessed by his dark entity, Kai Excalibur was here not only for his daughter, but for blood. Shiro steps off of the warp gate platform exiting the Alta district. The Alta blizzard winds blow over a passing by citizen. Shiro's body temperature begins to change as he instantly begins to adapt to the climate. After braving Alta, anywhere else was a cakewalk. Slightly ill from the oncoming effects of the Nox virus, Shiro treks through the streets of Haven, keeping his eyes peeled as androids filled with new life parade around while G-types fall ill. Shiro shakes his head. There's always something wrong with this city, he thinks to himself as he turns and enters Mesa Mart. Shiro browses the medicine aisle, squinty-eyed, when suddenly Shiro number 2 calls him over to the end of the aisle after locating the motion sickness remedy. Shiro didn't understand what was happening to him yet, but he needed immediate relief. After 10 minutes of waiting in the long line, Shiro is next in line. After 10 minutes of waiting in the long line, Shiro is next. But just as he steps forward, a large black muscular and scaly G-type butts in front of him, shoving him backward. Move it, they say, as they place expensive medical equipment on the counter. Shiro retaliates and engages him until the G-type turns around, revealing it to be none other than the Haven Kingpin himself, Dravko Maz. His scarred draconic eye penetrates Shiro's heart. 2 of his goons step in front of Drav and go to place hands on Shiro, but they get their wrists grabbed and twisted by 2 Shiro clones appearing by his side. Drav goons are forced to their knees. Just before Drav gets further involved, Mesa Mart's sentry bot, Tom, leaps over the counter and breaks up the fight with heavy artillery drawn. Drav breathes heavy and seems to be struggling. Shiro catches his balance, holding on dearly to what equilibrium he had. Drav doesn't feel like fighting, nor does he feel like paying. He takes the respirator equipment and leaves. Tom's collateral damage estimator determines that letting him steal will cost the store a lot less and lets him go. Shiro was wise. He had to conserve his energy for what was coming. Shiro slams a bottle of Obadiah's ocean sickness pills on the counter. Tom's face turns into a 12K display showing an advertisement featuring a pre-blue Marshall Mesa trying to sell Shiro Mesa brand motion sickness. But Shiro declines, grabs his shit, and leaves. We cut to the young Solian street doc, Tori, running for her life through the subway station. Behind her, the escaped convict, Switchblade, with the butcher knife in his hand, laughing maniacally. His prey escapes up the steps as he comes to a halt when he sees 10 to 12 psychotic Nagamoto clansmen come trotting down the stairs and begin to surround him. Switchblade pulls out another knife in his other hand and beckons for his new challengers to approach, fearless. The psychotic clansmen begin to slap their own faces, then charge him at the same time. We hear the screams of Switchblade. We begin to see Haven's most dangerous gangsters and criminals from all around the city get attacked and pursued by psychotic Klansmen. Almost impervious to pain and filled with adrenaline and strength, these psychopaths overwhelm and subdue all of their targets, kidnapping them one by one and bringing them to the feet of Yin Nagamoto. There were just a few more targets left. We see Dravko Ma sitting in the back of his armored truck, one of many in the center of a militarized formation cruising down the highway. Hostage scientists finished their work removing shrapnel from his chest cavity and install a sufficient enough device into his lungs, allowing him to breathe at ease for as long as it's powered. Amateur cybernetics, but will do for now. After all, they are mutologists and he wanted them focused on his gamma eggs. Dravko inquires about their status, and they inform him that they are close to hatching. Suddenly, loud thumps can be heard on top of the vehicle. Drav looks at his general, Noxious Wong, the God King, and nods. Noxious's eyes glow, and he gets up and climbs up into the hatch. Their trucks fast approach a barricade of vehicles and bodies, forcing them to get off in an exit and come to a stop. Noxious is suddenly engaged by a legion of psycho gangsters coming from all angles. The entire Wang gang exit from their vehicles and protect Drav's vehicle while fighting with their God King. We see gangers cut into psychos with their razor-sharp vibro katanas, only to have their eyes gouged out if they fail to decapitate them, for the psychos were seemingly abominable. Noxious Wong flays and roasts his assailants while telekinetically keeping them at bay. A psycho comes across his head with a spiked bat. Noxious goes to attack, but loses control of his own arm for a moment. A side effect, the Nox virus. This gives the psycho enough time to whack him again, knocking him out cold, as he is then zipped up in a high-tech body bag, airlocking him up, and hauled off on the shoulder of a psycho gangster on foot. A psycho comes bashing its head into the exterior of Drav's tenant door window when suddenly crashing through is Drav's fist bashing its head in, then grabs it and impales it onto the windshield's broken glass. Drav kicks his door open, sending it flying into other psychos as he gets out and fends them all off. With solid, swift strikes, Drav outmatches all of his assailants. A psycho empties its clip on Drav's nearly impenetrable scales and leaps onto his back, but is immediately swung to the ground as Dravko rolls, twists, and rips his arm off. Drav tosses the arm and pulls a traffic forecasting rod out of its post and begins swinging it around wildly while spewing acid to keep them from overwhelming him. But it wasn't enough. They weren't going down from blunt force, and only acid downed them for good. The battery in Drav's lung capacitor begins to die, as they were not Mesa brand, and therefore unsatisfactory. The Nox virus is taking its toll. A psycho runs up on Drav, but is immediately pummeled by a barrage of metal bangle strikes as a mysterious cloaked figure appears, and in one swift maneuver, they flip up and over the psycho, snapping its neck. The cloaked figure lands and walks over to Drav. We see two vibrant mismatched irises glowing gold and the other violet, as Nam pulls her shadowy hood back. With a look of surprise, Dravko coughs and drops the rod. "You're alive too." Nam stares at him with a blank face. Something about him seemed familiar, but it wasn't connecting. Drav was one of many memories attached to strong and undesirable emotions that Nam disposed of long ago. Alex Crow lands on both feet beside her. He was in his partial demonic state, covered in blood. With two large demonic arms bursting with muscle, he carries two halves of a corpse like drumsticks. Alex lets all his inner demon out and embraces the instability. "Is this lizard one of ours?" He asks. I nods yes, triggering Drav. He is the one that Ivan wanted us to get. And she waves a tarot card, opening up a portal to her mind, and steps in, followed by Drav. Once in, Alex forms his arm into a large axe and cleaves an entire sidewalk of civilians just to take out a few more psycho Klansmen, but kills innocent bystanders while doing so. bloodlust that has grown worse and worse, and that he has hidden from Nam. Alex was a ticking time bomb. His mind is beginning to birth more and more demonic personalities, and soon could blossom into what his brother Aerod feared now that he is unguided and unleashed. Alex laughs maniacally, then leaps in after Nam. Lectern observes his luxurious casino floor through the windows of his big office. Within weeks, it became the district's top entertainment venue. Lectern turns his broad shoulders toward the owner of the building, who we see on his knees pleading that Lectern hold up his end of the contract. With brolic bodyguards behind him, the contractor reiterates that at least pay him and his men for the construction if he's going to outright steal the Breen building from him. Lectern laughs. Steal? He whistles and has his bodyguard show the contractor the part of the contract that highlights the transferal of rights for payment. Lectern rattles off a few loopholes in the contract, justifying his gain and proving that the contractor's unborn grandchildren will owe him a check as well. The contractor was outright conned into renovating the building and installing a defense system for free. He knew if he argued more, he'd be ruined further, or maybe even killed. Lectern thanks him and has him thrown out of the room. He then presses a button and has free drinks taken to the special room. We cut to William White Knight walking across the floor of a quaint and dim-lit club filled with many shadowy figures and puppet masters congregating in their corners. The basement of the Breen building was home to a peculiar crowd of patrons. William brings the drinks to a table, and before he could serve them, Dravko Maz snatches a bottle off of the platter, cracks it open, and downs it. He was angered by the thought of Defsude still running free, but more so frustrated by Nam's emptiness and selective memory. Nam assures Drav she is just fine with the way she manages her emotions now, and can move forward just fine with the memories she has now, for they are the only memories that matter. She then tells him of the opportunities that await within her unit. Nam only chooses to remember that Drav was a powerful ally and got things done. For that, she put in a good word for him, which is the only reason he sat where he sat now. I need you to help me kill Nuad and rescue Baby X. I can trust in your power more than anyone. Dravko thinks about it. He tells her that her unit's gonna need to send over a check then. He also makes her promise that he's the one that gets to squeeze Defsude's head until it pops. Nam doesn't make any promises but thanks him for his help. Just then, Selena Rend steps into the hideout from the void, and with her, a shivering Jeremiah Oliver, who immediately pulls out his phone and begins dialing numbers, trying to salvage what order he has over the city's economy. We cut to William White Knight, who we see behind the bar, watching the news intently. Troy Powers, the man of the people, can be heard talking to leaders of the community at a round table. He speaks of the faith, hope, and how the power to do so is within us. William begins to feel inspired to break out of his current situation, his contract. The room gets cold as a patch of the abyss appears in the center of the hideout, and there standing is Ivan Bakra. Right beside him, Rezanok Fenrius. The room becomes lit by the red aura of Rezanok's arm until he pulls the darkness of his cloak, concealing it. He immediately spots Nam Ki and becomes paralyzed by the moment. She, Alex, Dravko, and Selena Rend approach, and as he expected, and how she wanted, Nam Ki doesn't recognize him in his abyssal visage. And he doesn't know the lengths she went to make sure that she wouldn't have recognized his handsome brown-haired face. Reznak didn't want to reveal himself until he could redeem himself and get their child back. He didn't even know if it was a boy or girl, for God's sake. All he can recall is seeing Deftooth standing over Nam's open body, a sight that angers him beyond imagination. Once Nam notices Reznak gazing at her, he turns away. Ivan waits for everyone to gather around. Lectern ushers everyone not involved out of the room, and he tells William to turn the TV off. We see a close-up of William Knight's eyes as he gazes in amazement at Troy Powers on the news, completely ignoring his master. William snaps out of it when Lectern's electrifying gauntlet is jabbed into his back. William turns toward Lectern angrily, but realizes he needs to calm down. Being hostile toward Lectern was a breach in a contract, and breaching a contract in the Gulgan district was punishable by death. William looks at the symbol on Troy's chest one last time, then turns off the TV. Ivan greets his allies and welcomes Dravko into the fold to assist with their next objective. Drav rolls his eyes. He already wasn't a fan of the weird, scruffy vagabond or anyone who could just appear and disappear as they choose. They can all choke and die. Ivan looks at Nam, then Rez, and chuckles.
See the power of networking? Look at us.
No one is smiling. Jeremiah interrupts and points out that Ivan doesn't have the girl like planned. Ivan explains that he ran into some new enemies we didn't know we had. They seemed to be in the right place at the right time. It was unfortunate. Suddenly, entering the room, with the door shutting behind him, we see Arold. Nam's partner, Alex, stands to his feet in surprise at the sight of his brother and approaches him. Alex questions Arold about the strange dark armor encasing his body. Arold scolds Alex for allowing his demons to overcome his mind. With one look, he can tell that's what happened. Jeremiah squeezes in between both of them. Never mind all that, you weirdos. We need to hurry. I have a business to save, like yesterday. Literally. Arold cuts to the chase. He tells them of the Emperor's growing army and Deftooth's plan to destroy the only beings capable of destroying him, the Vitae girls. Ivan waves away the thought. He wasn't interested in destroying Nuad just yet, and failing to capture Serenity doesn't disrupt the big plan. However, it just would have made cleaning things up a lot easier. Jeremiah beckons the group to get on with it. He has a special phone call that he needs to make. Selena Rend shoves a pair of enchanted gloves into Jeremiah's chest, forcing him to stumble back a good ways. We all have business to tend to, you worm. He looks down at the pair of business gloves and begins to put them on. They were made of the finest suede leather, light and supple as they began to fuse with his hand. Ivan snaps his finger as two sentient androids step out of the void. They were now acting as vessels for two of Ivan's most lethal abyssal ninja. They approach Jeremiah and place his cloak on his shoulders. Selena then places an indestructible emerald necklace on a platinum chain around Reznak's neck, and when its clasp locks, the entire proximity around Reznak begins to feel heavy and charged. Reznak then holds out his endless arm. Selena hands him a special scepter, then tethers it to his wrist for what purpose we shall soon see. Ivan, Nam-Ki, Drav, a clear-minded Arold, Selena Rend, Jeremiah Oliver and his abyssal android bodyguards all stand around Reznak holding his glowing red arm in the air, erupting with vibrant splashes of red light. They all vanish.